Welcome to the deep dive. It's really great to have you with us today. If you are listening to this, you have undoubtedly noticed the sheer velocity of artificial intelligence over the last few years. It's everywhere.
Oh, absolutely everywhere.
Right. And if you're like a lot of people, you probably find yourself wondering what it would actually take to be the person building these systems rather than just using them.
Which is a huge mental leap for a lot of people.
It is. Well, today we are exploring a highly detailed roadmap from 2026. It's titled From Zero to AI Engineer in Record Time. And it presents a premise that, on the surface, sounds like a late-night infomercial.
Yeah, it really does sound wild at first.
The roadmap claims that someone starting from scratch can become a highly paid AI engineer in just 3 to 6 months. They argue you can pull this off without a PhD, without an advanced mathematics background, and essentially just by dedicating about 6 hours a day to a very rigorous, optimized path.
It sounds almost too good to be true, but what makes this specific roadmap worth our time today is that it doesn't rely on hype. It grounds its strategy in hard, verifiable employment data from the 2026 job market.
Because we are looking at an entirely new economic landscape right now.
Exactly. The roadmap pulls from the official January 2026 LinkedIn employment report, which tracked the creation of over 1.3 million new AI-focused jobs globally in just a 2-year window.
Over 1 million jobs. That is staggering.
It is, and because of that sustained surge, the AI engineer role has actually ranked as the #1 fastest growing job in the U.S. for 2 years running.
Yeah.
And this is a global shift, too.
Right. It's not just Silicon Valley anymore.
Not at all. The data highlights a massive explosion in demand across emerging economies as well. It specifically points to regions like India, Colombia, and throughout Latin America.
And that brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We're going to take this exact step-by-step roadmap and dissect it. We want to know exactly what skills it demands, how these mandatory portfolio projects actually work, and how a beginner is supposed to navigate this market.
Because honestly, the idea of fast-tracking into an engineering role in under 6 months requires some serious scrutiny.
We really have to see if the evidence holds up.
And to do that, we're leaning on the foundation the roadmap itself uses. It aggregates updated 2026 data from industry pillars, like Katie Nuggets, towards data science, comprehensive guides from roadmap.esh, and widespread employability analyses.
So we have a very clear, documented trail of what the industry is actively demanding.
We do. It's all right there.
Okay, let's unpack this because the very first thing this roadmap attempts to do is dismantle a massive psychological barrier. For decades, there has been this entrenched genius myth surrounding artificial intelligence.
Oh, the idea that you had to be a math prodigy.
Exactly. The general assumption was that to even touch AI, you needed to spend 10 years at a university studying linear algebra and advanced calculus, likely culminating in a doctorate from a place like Stanford or MIT.
Right.
This roadmap essentially claims that era is over.
It really does, and the employment metrics actually back that up. The roadmap points to a 2025 study published in PMC demonstrating that mastering advanced generative AI tools is what drastically increases a candidate's employability today.
So it isn't about inventing the algorithms anymore.
No, it's about knowing how to wield the tools effectively. To support this, they highlight that 70% of graduates from intensive AI boot camps, they specifically cite 10 as an example, are landing relevant industry jobs in under 6 months.
70%. That completely shatters the traditional academic timeline.
It changes everything.
And the financial target they lay out is definitely a strong motivator for anyone considering this grind. For someone successfully executing this transition, the starting salary expectation for remote or international roles sits between $80,000 and $120,000 US dollars a year.
Or the equivalent adjusted for local markets like Colombian pesos.
Right. To go from zero to that kind of earning potential in half a year is wild. But it begs the obvious question, how is that logically possible?
What's fascinating here is the underlying structural shift in the industry. It represents a total paradigm shift in what the job title AI engineer actually means in 2026.
How so?
Well, if you look back just a few years, being in this field meant you were a machine learning researcher. You spend months, sometimes years, painstakingly gathering data to train isolated proprietary models from absolute scratch.
Which require an immense computational power and massive budgets.
And deep theoretical math. But today, the role has fractured. The modern AI engineer is a builder, not a researcher.
A builder? builder.
Yes. They are constructing practical functional systems by taking pre-existing large language models, like the ones from OpenAI or Google, and plugging them into business workflows. It is entirely about application integration and problem solving rather than theoretical computer science.
That is a crucial distinction to make early on. You are taking incredibly complex, pre-built Lego blocks and snapping them together to build a house rather than manufacturing the plastic for the Lego blocks yourself.
That is the perfect way to look at it.
So if I am starting from absolute zero on a Monday morning for the N rating, what is my very first move? The roadmap breaks this journey into 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 covers the first 2 months, weeks 1 through 8. This is the foundation.
And surprisingly, you don't even touch AI right away.
Right. The first step is learning advanced Python, moving into object-oriented and asynchronous programming.
Because before you can integrate AI into a system, you have to know how to build the system itself.
That makes sense.
Along with Python, the roadmap insists you learn to build APIs using frameworks like FastAPI or Fastmaster Git for version control, understand the basics of Docker, and learn SQL for managing databases.
Let's pause on a few of those terms for a moment, because a list of software jargon can be intimidating. I hear API thrown around constantly. What does that actually mean for someone building these systems?
An API, or application programming interface, is essentially the messenger. Think of it like being in a restaurant. You are sitting at the table with a menu, and the kitchen is where the food is made. You don't go into the kitchen and cook the food yourself.
Yeah.
You give your order to the waiter, who takes it to the kitchen and then brings the food back to you. The API is the waiter.
Yeah. Okay, say
It is the piece of code that allows your application to talk to the AI model, ask it a question, and receive the answer.
And what about Docker? That's another term that pops up in every engineering job description.
Docker is a tool for creating what are called containers. Imagine you build a piece of software on your personal laptop and it works perfectly, but when you send it to a coworker or try to put it on a company server, it crashes because their machine has different settings or a different operating system.
Which happens all the time.
Exactly. Docker solves this by packing your code and all the specific software it needs to run into a standardized virtual shipping container. It guarantees that if it works on your machine, it will work anywhere else.
That makes total sense. I actually really like the analogy the roadmap uses to explain how these early tools fit together. They say, imagine Python is your superpower and FastAPI is your hero suit.
I love that one.
You take this raw coding language and dress it up in a framework that allows it to actually interact with the rest of the web.
It's a great way to visualize it. And to acquire those baseline skills, the roadmap points to highly effective, extremely low-cost resources.
What do they recommend?
For Python, they recommend auditing the Python for Everybody course on Coursera, paired with a free online book called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. To learn that FastAPI hero suit, they advise going straight to the official documentation and tutorials.
But they're incredibly strict about one thing. Reading is not enough. You have to build.
You absolutely have to build. By the end of month 2, you are mandated to build a task management application with a working database and a basic web scraper.
But let's be real, going from zero coding knowledge to building database-driven applications in 8 weeks sounds like a massive, heavy lift.
Yeah.
Is that actually feasible?
It is intense, which is why the roadmap specifies a dedicated 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
It is highly targeted learning. You aren't learning every nuance of computer science. You are learning the exact specific syntax and tools required to build a web application.
It's the difference between studying a language to read classic literature versus learning the exact phrases you need to navigate a train station in a foreign country.
Exactly. It's totally pragmatic.
So once you have that basic fluency, you enter phase 2. We are now in month 3 weeks, 9 through 12. This is where you finally take the leap into machine learning and generative AI.
The fun stuff.
The roadmap starts you off with the basics of classic machine learning with tools like scikit-learn and XGBoost, just to understand how algorithms make predictions. But it quickly pivots directly into large language models. You have to learn about tokens, prompt engineering, and context windows.
And those concepts are the bedrock of the 2026 landscape. Take context windows, for example. When you are chatting with an AI, the context window is essentially its short-term memory capacity.
How much it can hold in its head at once.
Right. It is the maximum amount of text the AI can hold in its brain at one specific moment to formulate an answer. If you feed it a document that exceeds its context window, it will literally forget the beginning of the document by the time it reaches the end.
Wow.
Understanding these limitations is what separates a casual user from an engineer.
For this critical learning phase, the roadmap highlights what is essentially the gold standard for AI education: Andrew Meng's deeplearning.ai courses.
They are fantastic.
They specifically mandate the machine learning specialization on Coursera, followed by a course built with AWS called Generative AI with LLMs.
Those courses have millions of enrollments for a reason. They bridge the gap between high-level concepts and actual code. And this phase requires your first real AI project, building a chatbot with memory using the OpenAI API.
One detail in the roadmap really stood out to me regarding that specific project. It addresses the cost. A lot of people assume working with AI is prohibitively expensive.
It used to be.
But the roadmap points out that accessing OpenAI's API to build and test your own working chatbot is only going to cost you roughly $5 to $10 maximum.
It's incredible.
You are quite literally renting access to multi-million-dollar supercomputers for the price of a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
That level of accessibility is fundamentally altering who gets to innovate.
It democratizes the entire field. You don't need a corporate budget to experiment and build prototypes anymore. And that functional knowledge transitions you directly into phase 3, which is the undeniable core of this entire roadmap.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Phase 3 covers months 4 and 5. According to the source, this is where the magic actually happens. You step away from basic chat interfaces and learn the 3 critical pillars of the 2026 AI landscape: RH AI agents and multimodal systems.
Yes.
The roadmap makes it absolutely clear that companies are not hiring you to train basic models. They are hiring you to build complex systems using these 3 ingredients.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains the exact pain point businesses are facing right now. A company doesn't need an AI that knows how to write a poem. They need an AI that can securely read their private, messy internal documents, understand their specific inventory, and answer customer questions accurately based purely on that internal data.
Which is where RAG comes in.
Exactly. To do that, you have to master RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Let's break RAG down because it sounds incredibly complex. How does it actually work in practice?
Think of a standard large language model as a student sitting in an exam room taking a closed book test. They only know what they memorized during their initial training months or years ago.
So if they don't know the answer, they might just guess.
Or hallucinate, as we call it. A RAG changes the rules. It turns it into an open book test. When a user asks a question, the system first retrieves the relevant documents from the company's private database, hands the specific documents to the AI, and says, read this and use only this information to answer the user's question.
And to make that retrieval process work, the roadmap says you have to learn about embeddings and vector databases, specifically naming tools like Chroma or Pinecone.
Mm-hmm.
What is a vector database doing that a normal database can't?
A traditional database searches for exact keyword matches. If you search for canine, it only looks for the word canine. But a vector database turns concepts into numbers. Those are the embeddings.
Okay.
It plots them in a massive multi-dimensional space, so it understands the underlying meaning. It knows that dog puppy and golden retriever are clustered closely together with canine.
That is so smart.
It allows the AI to search through millions of corporate documents by concept and meaning, rather than just relying on exact word matches.
That is incredibly powerful, and the roadmap relies heavily on deep learning AI, again, to teach this, pointing to their specific short courses on retrieval augmented generation and AI agents in LangGraph.
But learning the theory isn't the end goal here.
Right. The roadmap guarantees that to catch a recruiter's eye, you must build 3 highly actionable portfolio projects during these 2 months. First, you need to build a personal assistant that uses RA to actively read and query your own PDF documents.
Which is brilliant because it proves to an employer that you can handle unstructured data, which makes up the vast majority of real-world business data.
Second, you're expected to build an AI researcher agent that can autonomously search the web, gather information, and synthesize that data into a coherent report. Now, I have to play devil's advocate here. Building an autonomous agent in month 4. That sounds like science fiction for someone who just learned Python. How does the roadmap expect a beginner to pull that off?
It is entirely possible because of orchestration frameworks like LangChain and Llama Index. You aren't coding the AI's brain from scratch.
Oh.
You are using a technique called REACT, which stands for Reason and Act. You use the framework to give the AI a prompt that essentially says, here is a goal, here is a web search tool, here is a calculator. Think about what you need to do, use the tools, review the results, and repeat until you solve the goal.
So you are writing the logic loop that manages the AI, acting as the manager rather than the worker.
Exactly. You're the orchestrator.
That makes the process sound much more approachable. It's logic and flowcharts.
Yeah.
And the third project you have to build is a multimodal application, an app that seamlessly combines both text and images, utilizing models like GPT-4o or Google's Gemini.
And here's where the roadmap places a massive emphasis on deployment. Having these incredible projects running locally on your laptop is practically useless for getting hired. You have to put them into real production.
Right, because a recruiter isn't going to download your code and run it in a terminal.
Precisely. You need to wrap your backend code in a clean, interactive user interface. The roadmap suggests using tools like FastAPI or Streamlit.
Streamlit's great for that.
It's fantastic because it essentially takes your raw Python script and turns it into a neat, clickable web page with minimal effort. Then you host that web page live on platforms like Hugging Face or Vercel. A hiring manager needs to be able to click a URL and instantly interact with the tool you've built. That live interaction is what separates a student from a hireable engineer.
Which brings us to the final stretch, Phase 4. We are now in month, 6 weeks, 21 through 24. This is all about the portfolio, overcoming the inevitable hurdles, and executing the actual job hunt.
The real test.
The roadmap details a final push to build a capstone project. They suggest a smart career assistant that integrates everything. Machine learning RAG and autonomous agents all functioning in one system.
It proves you can tie it all together.
Alongside that capstone, it recommends grabbing recognized credentials like the Google AI Essentials or the TensorFlow Developer Certificate, noting they should only take a week or two with your new skill set.
And once that portfolio is primed, the roadmap reveals a highly specific strategy for LinkedIn. They strongly advise against simply posting a link to a GitHub repository and hoping someone reads your code.
Because nobody will.
No one has the time. The strategy is to post actual live video demos of your projects working in real time. Show the interface, show the inputs, show the agent autonomously surfing the web. You pair that visual proof of competence with the green Open to Work banner on your profile. The visual demonstration of value is what stops a recruiter from scrolling.
But let's be realistic, spending 6 months grinding through this roadmap is going to present serious friction. The roadmap doesn't sugarcoat this. It identifies the most common real-world challenges and offers pragmatic solutions. For instance, the sheer speed of the AI industry. How do you study for 6 months when the tools keep changing every week?
The roadmap advocates for highly targeted time management. It explicitly tells you not to try and read every single headline. Instead, dedicate just 2 hours a week to reading preprint research on Arxriv or following key signals like Andrew Ng on X.
Just filter the noise.
Exactly. But the real hack they offer is to use the AI to learn about the AI. Take complex new updates and feed them into tools like Cursor or Claude and ask it to summarize the changes and explain how they impact your current code. Let the technology do the heavy lifting for your education.
Another major hurdle is the 6-hour daily study requirement. That is a fast track to burnout, especially if you are balancing other responsibilities. Does the roadmap offer any survival strategies for that kind of mental fatigue?
It does. Mechanically, it recommends the Pomodoro technique, working in strictly focused intervals with enforced breaks. But conceptually, the solution to burnout is to ensure you are building fun, low-stakes projects alongside your serious portfolio pieces.
Like what?
Well, if you are frustrated with vector databases, take an afternoon and build an automated bot that generates obscure internet memes. Engaging with the technology playfully keeps your curiosity alive when the deep technical work gets exhausting.
That makes a lot of sense. You have to remind yourself why the technology is actually fun to use. But what about the job market itself? Even with 1 million new jobs, there is high competition for entry-level remote roles. How does a newcomer stand out?
The roadmap strategy here is to niche down aggressively. Don't market yourself as a general AI engineer. Market yourself as an AI engineer who builds autonomous agents specifically for the e-commerce sector, or someone who designs specialized RAG systems exclusively for healthcare data.
So you become the go-to person for that specific problem.
Exactly. When you solve a specific industry problem, you become vastly more attractive to companies in that sector. Additionally, the source strongly advises publishing your content, documentation, and portfolio in both English and Spanish.
Oh, that's a great tip.
That simple step massively broadens your market reach to international employers and remote opportunities.
And what about the classic catch-22? I can't get a job without experience, but I can't get experience without a job. How does someone with zero professional engineering background cross that threshold?
The roadmap is brutally pragmatic about this. It tells you to bypass the traditional resume filter entirely. Go to freelance platforms like Upwork or Fiverr and start pitching small, specific gigs using the exact projects you've already built in Phase 3.
You just start doing the work.
Right. The landscape in 2026 is unique. A massive number of startups are hiring based almost entirely on your live portfolio. Demonstrating a working deployed product that solves a business problem is worth 10 times more than a generic list of past non-technical jobs on a resume. You have to prove you can build.
Yeah, there's one more challenge they address, which I think is crucial right now.
Yeah.
Ethics and bias.
Yes, this is huge for getting hired.
The roadmap emphasizes that including an AI safety section in your projects, addressing things like prompt injection and fairness, is a massive competitive advantage in interviews.
Because companies are terrified of deploying an AI that says something inappropriate or leaks private data. If you show you're already thinking about safety, you instantly stand out.
So what does this all mean? When we step back and look at this entire 6-month roadmap, from learning the syntax of Python to deploying a multimodal autonomous agent, it paints a vivid picture of the modern AI landscape. The AI engineer of 2026 is not an elite theoretician locked in an ivory tower. They are practical, hands-on builders.
Absolutely.
And this roadmap presents a compelling case that mastering tools like R8 orchestration frameworks is vastly more accessible than the public assumes. The market demand is surging. The salaries reflect a massive premium for execution. In fact, the source cites UK studies showing up to a 23% salary bump simply for possessing applied AI skills. It all comes back to the core mantra repeated throughout the roadmap. The one who builds wins. You don't have to understand the microscopic math of a neural network. You just need to start building useful things.
It is a genuinely empowering framework. And as we conclude this analysis, if this roadmap accurately proves that the technical barrier to building advanced functional AI systems can be crossed by a dedicated beginner in just 6 months, it raises an important question for you to consider. In a world where eventually anyone can learn the technical steps to build an autonomous AI agent, perhaps the most valuable skill of the future isn't knowing how to code the AI, but knowing which human problems are actually worth solving.
That is a fantastic point to end on. A huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope this breakdown of the 2026 AI Engineer Roadmap has demystified the terminology and shown you what is mechanically possible right now. If you've been on the fence about diving into this technology, we highly encourage you to take that first step and write your first line of code. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will see you on the next deep dive.